you actually get the medical care that you need. So you have access to over 800 hospitals around Kenya, and you have a flexible Lipa Pole Pole payment, so you can get covered immediately and pay in small installments. Extra benefits like, telemedicine, free drug delivery, and well-being programs. So you need to sign up now. You send an SMS, health, to 40643. That's health, 40643, or call 07099499000. That's 0709499000, or go to the website www.jubileeinsurance.com for more information. Medical emergencies don't wait. Why should you with Jubilee? He was the 49th president of the Law Society of Kenya, and he's here today. Nelson Harvey is no guest to the Situation Room, and he's graced us with his presence this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, my lady. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
I'm great.
Good to have you here today.
Thank you.
Karibu Sana. CT is going to welcome you with today's proverb. This one you like, I think. Then you can translate it and tell us what you think.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, our proverbs the whole of this week come from the Republic of the Gambia. Okay? There's a river that traverses, cuts right in the middle of that country. And there are those who, whether they're soothsaying or simply saying what is obvious, they say the name is derived from the river because it's the river Gambia. Be that as it may, the Republic of Gambia also has a river passing through it called the Gambia River. Okay? The proverb. Never mind if your nose is ugly, so long as you can breathe through it.
Absolutely, yes.
Mm-hmm.
First things first. It's not your business to see your nose. Your nose is for breathing.
It is not your business to see your nose. Well, that's new.
Our learned friend has told us, if your nose resembles a vacuum cleaner, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
If it resembles a needle, it doesn't matter either.
Does it work?
If it resembles a fish hook, so what?
But you know what's funny? You're actually right. So scientifically, your eyes do see your nose, but they delete it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so he's quite right. Like, your nose is actually in the way. So your brain deletes your nose, so you don't see it.
Those of you who see your noses, good for you.
Might be an inconvenience, but all right. If it works, Wakili, that's
As long
what's
as you're breathing through it, guys. See it as much as you like. Yes.
Okay.
It's not your business.
So, interesting things coming out of the courts Friday. The court has ruled that Azimio La Umoja is the rightful majority party. Let's just go through some of those points, shall we? Judges John Chigiti, Lawrence Mugambi, and Jairus Nga have found that Wetangula violated, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Mr. Moses Wetangula, violated the Constitution in making his determination on parliamentary leadership. The ruling overturns his decision made on the 6th of October 2022. The court states that Wetangula wrongly assigned 14 members from various parties to Kenya Kwanza. This move gave Kenya Kwanza a majority status in the House. The judges have ruled that he had no legal basis for the reassignments. Wetangula declared that Kenya Kwanza had 179 members of parliament against Azimio's 157. However, documents from the Registrar of Political Parties show that Azimio comprised 26 political parties, while Kenya Kwanza had 15 as of April 21st, 2022. The court has ruled that the Speaker cannot fault the Registrar of Political Parties. Number one, they've stated that the Speaker failed to present any post-election coalition agreements to justify the decision. The judges have criticized Wetangula for violating the Constitution and have emphasized that the Speaker must act with impartiality and uphold public trust. They've also ruled that his position as Ford Kenya party leader conflicts with his role as Speaker. The judges have stated that he ceased to be Ford Kenya's leader upon his election as Speaker. The court has declined to suspend its ruling. The state must file a formal application for any stay of the decision. The case was filed by Ken Jagi, Advocate Lampa Sunyinka, and 10 others. This is where we stand. So, hearing those things, Nelson, this morning, just going over them again, because, you obviously went through them, and hearing what the court says, the rudimentary question would be, so what does that mean? And where are we now as things stand?
I've always posited that law is not as complex as many of us may want to portray it. I mean, it's common sense, it's logic.
Mm-hmm.
The Constitution has stipulated that the Speaker of the National Assembly will not be apolitical. The Political Parties Act and the Leadership and Integrity Act have expressed themselves clearly on this issue. But what is confounding is that Moses Wetangula is not just any lay person.
Mm-hmm.
He's a distinguished lawyer of over 45 years' experience. Why will he want to assume two roles, one of a party leader and another one of the Speaker of the National Assembly? And you see, as I said much earlier, this situation is a big dent on the Kenya Kwanza administration and the government of President William Samoei Ruto. And no blameworth on the part of the president or the coalition, because it has been told to him time without number, you need to fold Ford Kenya and join the main dominant party in this coalition. You need to relinquish your post as party leader of Ford Kenya and maintain your role as Speaker of the National Assembly. But he has refused to do it.
So he's been told.
He's been told, time without number. Look, they came into this alliance that we formulated in 2021 with Musalia Mudavadi sometime in May 2022. Upon appointment as Chief Cabinet Secretary, Mudavadi relinquished his position as party leader of
the
ANC.
ANC.
In fact, he resigned as member of the ANC. We cannot countenance a situation whereby a party leader also assumes the role of the arbiter in the matters of the National Assembly. And you see, as day succeeds night, you've seen how catastrophic his decisions have been. They're not objective, they're biased, they're not based on legal principles. And questions may be asked, what is the validity of all these decisions that have been made by the National Assembly under the oversight of Moses Wetangula? The other day, I saw him retort that these are just suggestions by the court.
The man has a sense of humor, doesn't he?
I mean,
Suggestions by the
I don't know which sense of humor. Is this English or Roman? Roman, because I'm told he's a Roman Pope.
If indeed a determination by a duly constituted court of law is a suggestion, what does that say of all the determinations that our courts have made?
Look, I mean, you may not know or recall or have forgotten, when a coup was conducted in Ford, Kenya, about 6 years ago, and Moses Wetangula risked losing his seat as a member of that party and the party leader, he came to me and pleaded and said, Mr. President, I just want you to appear in court for 2 minutes and save my soul. And indeed, I went and appeared before Justice Molwa for 2 minutes. And we countermanded the coup. Look, what I'm saying in simple terms, he's in office courtesy of a court order.
Okay.
So you cannot buy
You cannot
the same
treat
mouth.
one as a suggestion.
by the same mouth.
Claim that this order declaring as invalid your dualistic position as party leader and Speaker of the National Assembly is a suggestion.
Okay, so now let's look at what it does for parties, shall we? So if by dint of his proclamation as Speaker that Kenya Kwanza then was named majority because of the inclusion of other parties, and now what we're hearing is that the court essentially has overturned that because of several things. Number one, there was no declaration by the registrar of political parties. There's no documentation to show that. Number two is that the number of parties that the Azimio La Umoja One Kenya, et cetera, had. So that would essentially overturn this proclamation made by the Speaker. What does that mean for the majority in Parliament? And what does that do for every decision, whether it was a decision of who becomes majority leader, minority, and all of this, as well as decisions that were taken in the House to date? What does that mean?
Let me begin from the end, then we progress towards the end. Ideally, it means the status quo ante has been restored. The position before this illegal decision by the Speaker of the National Assembly has been restored. And what was that position? And the position is not one that is polemic. It's not complicated. It's simplistic. The court said a determination of who is the majority in the National Assembly is not the function of the Speaker of the National Assembly. It's not a matter for debate by the National Assembly in the first place. It is self-evident from the declaration by the IBC as contained in Gazette notices. And what was that declaration? That Azimio had 171 and Kenya Kwanza had 165. Azimio had designated the majority leader and heads of various committees. And the application of the law will mean, therefore, that Kimani Ichung'wah must vacate his office effective immediately. Mohamed Junet must occupy the office of the head of the majority in the National Assembly. I've heard individuals claim that this decision has been overtaken by events. Which events? You see, the event that informed the designation of the majority leader in the National Assembly prior to this decision has not changed. The Gazette notice that constitutes the official communication by the IBC of who were elected as members of the National Assembly. And going by that, therefore, it is expected that Azimio will assume their majority seats in the National Assembly when they resume tomorrow and start conducting business in the manner in which it was intended to be done, but for this illegal interruption.
How is that going to happen? It's not as though Junet Mohammed is going to walk into the majority speaker's seat, and it's not as though Ichung'wah is going to vacate the seat just because of this. How would that happen?
Look, I'm not extremely learned. I do not have a PhD. Most of what I may say may be considered stupid. But this is the simplistic manner in which the law was expressed. Whether or not it will be performed, it's beyond my elementary ability to contemplate.
You know, Harvey, I am so perturbed, and I'll tell you why I'm perturbed, that the Speaker of the National Assembly has been declared by a court of law to be A, biased because of holding two positions, B, made an illegal and unconstitutional decision in allocating UDA the majority status, and we are sitting here and talking about it as though it's a matter of if and buts. How do we get to a point in this country where such actions actually have culpability, have some form of retribution, some form of correction that is enforceable by the law? Because for me, it is hard to imagine that you do an illegality for 3 years now, and then when the ruling comes down, it's still a matter of maybe they will, maybe they won't.
Or they'll just ignore the whole thing and go on as though nothing happened.
How is that possible?
And that's why I said our projection expectations on what should happen ought not be the ideal position. It ought to happen by itself. And that is why it has been said, court orders are not suggestions. They're not supposed to be babysat. And in a working ideal democracy, this discussion will not even have been rife. What the Speaker of the National Assembly will have said, I've seen the order. It is a court order. It has annulled what I've done. Will henceforth act in accordance with the court order. But this is Kenya, where most people in public office consider the Constitution, the law, and court orders themselves to be inconvenient. But what I can tell you without any fear of contradiction is that the decision by the three judges is unassailable on appeal.
Right.
It is solid. Because the exemption that has been placed in the Political Parties Act as to the holding of dual positions, public office, state office, and office in a political party, has so much clarity that it's not capable of two interpretations. The only people exempt from that requirement are the president, the deputy president, the governor, the senator, the member of the National Assembly, and MCA. These can maintain their office in a political party But the Speaker cannot maintain an office in a political party. It's a nullity. It's what in law is called a nullity ab initio, from the beginning.
Right.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter how much time has passed, how much acquiescence or countenance has been on those who are supposed to say no. It goes without saying. It's bad.
So the expectation, rather, not even the expectation, or not even the suggestion, it is in law. It has been, declared by the courts that he should drop one and drop one immediately.
Yes. And in the nature of things, what did he have first? He had the office
He had the
of party leader
leader
of Ford Kenya.
Yes.
Now, the Constitution and statute prohibit him from holding the office of Speaker of the National Assembly if he holds the office of a political party head. And he has refused to relinquish the former. Sorry, he has refused to relinquish the latter.
Yeah.
He wants to maintain both at the same time. Although the court did not expressly state this, the logical consequence will be he has failed the eligibility test to continue holding the second office. And the consequence will be one member of the National Assembly ought to move a motion to remove him as Speaker of the National Assembly. Because those in the National Assembly cannot dispossess him of his office as party leader of Ford Kenya. Neither could the court do that.
Okay.
But both the court and the National Assembly can dispossess him of the office of the Speaker of the National Assembly.
So the judiciary, the courts rather, have pronounced themselves on this. But we already know that we're already having a meal of the political here. And that questions of the opposition and who would have been the majority party in the National Assembly and all of this, the Speaker, we know that everybody is already intertwined in this whole political menagerie, whatever you want to call it. So does it pose any kind of difficulty whereby you had significant members of parliament who were now brought and given positions in government? Number one. Would it pose any kind of difficulty then for a member of parliament to raise a notion, for example, that you have, number one, the speaker immediately removed, and that number two, the political party with the majority now, as declared by the courts, comes in and takes their place? We've heard Jimmy Orengo over the weekend talk about this. We have heard, the likes of Jimmy Wajigi say things over the weekend and say, come on now, Azimio, you need to take your position and push for this thing. When you bring in the political stint of all of this, do you see that happening? Do you see it happening now with where we've gone politically already?
It really need not matter what I see, because my vision could be impaired. But the clarity of the law ought not to suffer an impairment. But let us see, why is it that we are perceiving this obstacle? Immediately, the election was called, and it was evident that Azimio had the majority. What happened? There was a deliberate move by Kenya Kwanza to purchase 14 MPs who were affiliated to Azimio. That's deliberate.
Yes.
And it's clear from the decision of the court. These are not pronouncements by myself. That is what the court said. These 14 were purchased. They were co-opted. But notwithstanding that co-opting, which appears to reside only in the mind of the Speaker and Kimani Ichung'wah, the clarity of the evidence presented by the Registrar of Political Parties is there is no post-election coalition agreement deposited with that office to evidence the exit of these 14. And if that be the position, as we are speaking right now, then it means nothing changed. So what has happened is adding nothing onto nothing, expecting it to sustain.
Become something.
Yeah, it won't. It will collapse, and it has collapsed. And the mere fact that there appear to have been a big shift to the extent that the broad-based government has incorporated individuals from both divides does not change the law. And that's why I've differed with several of my colleagues who posited that the court failed to take into account the doctrine of mootness, that the issue has been overtaken by event. You see, events are factual. The law is static insofar as it is until such a time as it's been amended. So facts could have changed, but the law has not changed. And what is the change in those facts? It's intended to camouflage the reality, to run away from the truth. But however much you run away from the truth, your flight is without motion. There is no distance that you have covered.
You see, there is a danger. There is a danger, though, when we look at how it is beginning with the immediate former president, who pioneered this trend that we now have within the political class where court rulings are ignored or outrightly disobeyed. There's this concept of the rule of law. There is a Justice Mativu who said that any court that does not have the capacity to have a contempt law is not a court at all. So there is a constitutional aspect to it that people who disobey court orders could actually cease to hold public office.
Yes, and should.
There are many other consequences, but when you find that the rule of law is being eroded, essentially what is being set loose to the populace, by way of example, is that the rule of law can be ignored. It means we can disobey the law.
The law, yes.
Now, that is a recipe for chaos, which often leads to disaster. Because if that is the way everybody goes about it, and the examples are being set by people who hold very high offices in this country, if not the highest, what then do you say of the ordinary citizen who observes all these things? What mind do you think we are creating with regards to our courts?
Now, look, those in power want the ordinary mind to feel that he or she has no control of what they would do. But you see, the constitutional architecture is such that the sovereign, the ultimate authority, resides in the people, those who are perceived to be without any say. And it is for that reason that I must dichotomize the parameters of the decision by the court. You see, the court cannot go to the National Assembly and remove the Speaker of the National Assembly.
It cannot.
But the court has indicated in no uncertain term that the Speaker of the National Assembly has violated the Constitution. What is the effect of violating the Constitution? You become unsuitable to hold public office. Then the sequential mechanism kicks in. A member of the National Assembly ought to originate a motion to censure and or to impeach the Speaker of the National Assembly. And if they do not do that, then there is power under the Constitution also for any citizen to move the National Assembly to take the requisite step. But more fundamentally, and I think the people of Kenya need not be confined by the structures that they have put in place, because these structures are there for the performance of their delegated authority as the sovereign. Don't allow these individuals who have violated the Constitution to come to your village, to come to your constituency, to come to your county.
Refuse to listen, essentially.
Refuse to listen.
True.
Say no. Heckle, tell them to go away. Block their road. They are in office courtesy of you. It is fundamental that the people of Kenya realize when you're casting your ballot, you're signing the employment letter of whoever you are electing. He or she is your agent, and the agent must act in conformity with what you've given him or her as the job description. And the job description is the Constitution. So he has violated the Constitution. He has desecrated the Constitution. He has lost the mandate you gave him or her to govern on your behalf. Recall it. Take it back.
Take it back.
True.
We're having we're going to take a break at this point. Having a conversation this morning with Nelson Having, and we're looking at the most recent order that has come from the court in terms of what should happen at the National Assembly, and also with political parties moving on from that. And even as we take a break, we'll be back right after this. But Mark, remind us why 150,000 people have been affected as a result of what has happened with the KCB
Not just
Foundation.
affected, they've gotten jobs via KCB to Jiajiri. And we talk about insurance and we talk about getting a mortgage and things like that. How do you do it? KCB to Jiajiri is a program that is created to empower you to get your vocational training at your local TVET across the country. And they're able to give you the training you need so that you are certified as a mechanic, hairstylist, beautician, etc., what have you. And then they're able to train you on business, train you on how to brand your business, train you on how to make sure you're making profits and you can properly do your accounts. Once you're done, you'll not only be able to ajiri yourself, but you'll be able to say to Jiajiri.
All right, so we continue and we come back. Remember that, this is the break that we're taking to look at weather and traffic. And what are you doing on your break? Is it breakfast on the go in traffic? Is it a post-workout treat or study break or work break? Indulge in the moments with Delamere yogurt, available in different exciting flavors: strawberry, real fruit, vanilla pods, wild berry, chocolate chips, lemon biscuit, pineapple coconut, pear caramel, apricot orange, and honey. At a store near you, indulge in the moments with Delamere.
Celebrate love at Merica Hotel Nakuru. Indulge in a romantic evening this Valentine's Day with a specially curated menu featuring ostrich steak, a glass of wine, and enchanting live music by Lakers Band. Secure your reservation today and create unforgettable memories. We all know why we're all here. The mission is to attack.
Who are we attacking?
Creatives, TikTokers, Wahesh, skillpreneurs, Mastori, Vibe, tuna finish kumalo, alafu tunagoda tena.
Halo, nimekuja na tangazo. Nilikutana naye Kilimani, Nairobi, 2015.
DJ Magic E. Enjoy the music.
There's a gap between the producers of technologies and innovation and the farmers, where a lot of technology has been produced, a lot of knowledge exists, but it's not being applied in the farm. So they do this for the farmers, but not with the farmers. So we decided now to do it as being as in practice, so that what we have seen from research, what we have seen from knowledge generators and investors, we apply it in practice, so that we can prove that these technologies are working or they're not working.
We are in the space where we can only prosper. In short, there is no day people will stop needing food. And so we need more farmers to come on space. We need more efficient farming procedures.
And that's why we chose horticulture, because it's high value. You can produce quality crops, which has high value in the market, and we can also get high returns, but we also must prepare this high risk.
Bells will always have news of tradition and things we need to follow. The trading bell, however, will always have news of precision, where industry makers and market movers have their stories to tell.
We want to exit some of the companies to the capital market so that we can deepen the market.
The thing about leadership is you're doing everything, but I think what's not seen is it's a very strong support team that on a day-to-day basis enables you to do well.
The performance of the shilling has a direct bearing on inflation because we import quite significantly the amount of goods that we consume in this country.
So tune in every Tuesday night where industry movers and market shakers have their stories to tell. that happened right here at the Bar House.
Dental Tips brought to you by Sensodyne. The gentle touch. Did you know brushing too hard can damage your enamel and cause tooth sensitivity? Use a soft bristle toothbrush and Sensodyne toothpaste for daily repair and long-lasting protection.
Sensodyne gives you long-lasting protections against sensitivity. I recommend Sensodyne because it works. It's brilliant.
Say that the law may say that Azimio is the leading party by majority in parliament, but it does not have the requisite troops on the ground to actually effect its majority status.
Let me answer your question sequentially. This Kanini Kega and Sabina, what's her name?
Sabina Chege.
Chege. You wanted to say Sabina Ishungwa? No.
No, Sabina Chege.
I thought it was Sabina Joy. Sabina Chege.
I see what you did there.
Those two are the cause of the problem, because they were the two rats that first jumped the ship. But you see, the machination has come to know, because the High Court, I believe sitting in Milimani or Kiambu, restored the leadership of Jubilee to its rightful owners. And that's why I've persisted in this position, that it doesn't matter how much you run away from the law. Your flight is without movement. So to that extent, there is clarity as to who are the owners of the Jubilee Party. No wonder, therefore, retired President Uhuru Kenyatta came out the other day and said, Jubilee Party will field Fred Matiang'i because it is his party. He has retained control of the party. And whoever had purchased these two, as well as the rest of the 14 saboteurs, paid consideration for no merchandise. And that is what the courts have said. A precedent has been set. Yes. Look, I did not agree with the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua. Not because Rigathi Gachagua is a good person. He's the worst of the leaders we've ever had.
Okay.
You understand?
Yes.
But I agreed with this impeachment for an ulterior motive. It set the bar low.
Yes.
It enabled the people of Kenya to have control over the accountability and integrity tools given to them under the Constitution.
This is
so
true.
They have it.
Yes.
Unfortunately, insofar as parliamentary matters are concerned, the exercise of that power first resides in the hands of the legislators. As I said before, the motion can only be moved by a sitting member of the National Assembly. But it doesn't preclude citizens from petitioning Parliament to take action. They're least likely to take action, knowing that their stomachs have been full catered for.
Right. I see this as quite a heavy decision, and heavy in terms of what also it portends, Javi. But then the question as to why did it take so long for this decision to be arrived at, number one, because then I can see what it would do in the minds of many. That initial scuffle, whether who was in the majority or who was not, because it seems to me like something pretty cut and dry. It's very clear according to the Constitution, you cannot hold this position as a Speaker of the National Assembly while at the same time holding a party position. Clear. Did it need any kind of further interpretation beyond a sit and think about it? Why did it have to go through so long? Because what it does now in the minds of people is that you're trying to topple something that has already been set in their minds. So the element of time comes into question, that for something that seems so cut and dry, like you said, really simple in terms of how the law should be able to go through, why would it take so much time for the court to make the declaration?
Can I ask you a question?
Me, yes.
when you say something has been set in the minds of people, this thing that has been set, what do you see it as?
Well, I'm looking at what speculation is, and I'm looking at what people have said, and I'm looking at the thousands of comments that have been made over time, whereby people are used to a certain individual now being in a position. People are used to certain, decisions that have been made as a result of the majority in the House.
Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about as set in the minds of people.
I agree. And you see, often when you're stretched in negotiations, you're most likely to agree to a lesser bargain. It's natural, it's human. So the starting point is that justice delayed is justice denied. Right. And the judiciary shoulders the biggest liability insofar as this matter is concerned. There is practice, in fact, entrenched in several decisions. Constitutional disputes, judicial review disputes ought to be determined expeditiously. And what is expedition? A determination beyond 6 months is inordinate. Insofar as a constitutional petition, a judicial review matter is concerned. Why do I say so? Because the Civil Procedure Act and the rules and practice have stipulated that a matter originated in a civil court, private disputes, ought to be determined within a year. So disputes between private individuals and the public, private individuals and the state, ought to be determined within 6 months. So these 3 judges must, as we appreciate the good decision they have made, our lamentation is that it has come too little too late. At a point in time where even the majority party in the National Assembly resiled to its fate and decided to accept a bargain lower than they were entitled to. And we can't blame them from a political point of view, because we need to be objective in our evaluation of this issue. And that is why many of them will say we're now in government, the issue's become mute, it's been overtaken by events. And these are the victims saying this, not the aggressors. You understand? So their position must be perceived from that perspective. But when that is said and done, one thing cannot be removed from this equation. You, as a leader, is elected on a specific mandate to go and represent the people. So the explanations that we have alluded to, which have been received from your end, need to be taken from that perspective. What motivated you to pick these incentives?
Right.
I mean, we elect you to go and pick your basic salary and allowances and serve us as member of National Assembly for Likuyani or Westlands for 5 years. Don't go there and be purchased like this 14. You shouldn't do that. It's wrong. So the court shoulders some measure of responsibility. You, as members of the National Assembly, shoulder the highest responsibility, because you are the delegates of the people insofar as legislative issues and oversight matters are concerned. You cannot give a credible explanation.
I remember having a conversation once with Justice Isaac Lenola, and he talked about judgments made taking into consideration the atmosphere in the nation at the time. Different factors that are taken into consideration when a judgment is being made. I wonder that when you look at it also then from a legal point of view, that if you do take into, because we're still talking about the time factor here, and then to ask yourself that in as much as you're making a judgment, right, taking into consideration how you know the political in the nation to be at any given time, do you then realize what the repercussions of that judgment would be when you make it? We know how things happen, whereby you already know. The judiciary must know that in a lot of cases, court orders are taken as suggestions. They've seen what has happened as a result of some of the court orders that have been made or some of the proclamations that have been declared, right?
Yes.
Do you take those into consideration? Because this 3-judge bench at this time saying this thing must also take into consideration what the political is at the moment, whereby they'll say, okay, yeah, well, the court have said it. But what is the likelihood, really, with how we've seen things happen, that Moses Wetangula will wake up this morning and say, okay, thanks, guys. It's been real. It's been a great ride, but I can no longer sit here anymore. Or that Kimani Ichung'wah will say, actually, you know what? The court dealt on Friday that I shouldn't be here. Let me take a back seat. Or that one member of parliament, a sitting active member of parliament, will come and put a petition forward and say, you shouldn't be here. And it's Junet Mohammed who should. Do you see what I mean?
I see what you mean. And there's a simple answer to that. I think we're talking about the wider public interest.
Indeed.
A road has been constructed across Standard Media Group property. The road is already functional. Mm-hmm. After 5 years, the court determines that there was no public participation in the acquisition of this land.
So what are you going to do? Take down the road?
So you see, you need to weigh the interests of the owners of this property vis-a-vis the wider public interest. Those are the issues that may tinker an outcome after passage of time, but not the static nature of the law. I mean, God forbid if I decided to put on a skirt, makeup, and high heels and use them for 5 years, masquerading as a lady, and it was discovered after 5 years that I'm not a lady. I mean, will you say that we need to countenance this situation longer than the 5 years? Because many people have looked at him and they think they look like a very beautiful
and they're
guy.
comfortable with the beautiful girl.
With the beauty.
No, it doesn't work like that. You see, the indelible flow in the Speaker of the National Assembly holding dual offices does not change. And if you are to countenance it beyond the determination by the court, it will mean you're giving these people a license to flout the law in future. Without disputing what Justice Isaac Leonola said, I've created the dichotomy between what can be considered as public interest to tinker decision.
Just a quick one. We saw Rigathi Gachagua impeached. Now, definitely the Speaker is in hot constitutional soup. You've also spoken of the President of the Supreme Court and her unsuitability for office. Please enlighten us on that arm of government as well. Where do you see her leadership being off kilter in terms of the Constitution?
She's failed us. You know, there used to be a very good lady here by the name Linda Ugutu. She's one of those who petitioned me to file a case in court on the CBC. You understand? Amongst many other parents. It took 5 years for the court to determine the CBC dispute. And when they determined it, they said, much time has passed. Students have already transited to this system. Books have been bought. What bullshit is this? And you're a judge of the High Court. Which school did you go to? You should be ashamed of yourself. But more shame should be taken by the Chief Justice.
I take it that this was filed under certificate of agency.
Absolutely.
And the agency was 5 years.
Yeah. And you see, some of them even belittled it. Said, no, we want to identify who is the child in the issue. What is the matter under contestation? I mean, look, my wife was very much against this CBC. She decided to take our children to a different school. But who else? I mean, do all of us have this capability?
No, not everybody has
it.
it.
You understand? And, you know, I'm very traditional. My premise was, look, I went to school in Angili Primary School. There was no window. In fact, it was just a hollow where I could jump out if I didn't like the teacher and rest outside. But here I am.
I can actually see you jumping out of that window.
Yeah. And relax outside, bask because I didn't like the music teacher, and come back for the English teacher because the English teacher was my mother. She should have noticed it. and here I am. So I thought, look, there's nothing wrong with this system. Let's just take the children there. Because we went through it. Yeah, I went to Nangili Primary School, I went to Musingu High School, I went to Nairobi University. Why do you want me to take my children to very expensive schools where you pay fees of 2 million? No, I won't do that. But this is the reality. And the courts countenance it. And as Mark asked, what is the Chief Justice doing about it? She's done nothing. Although this is not the topic for discussion today, but
it's actually relevant because those are three arms of government. We have impeached someone who was in the presidency, because we know the presidency is 2 people. Yeah. We've got a speaker who's been found in breach of the constitution. He should resign in shame. Then you have brought up issues, and there's a petition before the JSC on the president of the Supreme Court. That is the third arm of government.
So the end to this debacle is this, as I've said. The Chief Justice ought to go home. But in Kenya, people don't go home. There was a cartoon that the most complicated surgery is the one of removing a political leader or any other leader in Kenya from office. I think it can never be performed because they will resist the surgery. And we have taken this position that we can have a bad executive, and we have a bad executive. There's no doubt about it. We can have the worst legislature. We have the worst legislature. But we cannot allow ourselves to have bad judiciary, because the judiciary is the bastion, is the hope of everybody. I've told you, even this belligerent Wetangula came and pleaded, please, can we go to court to preserve my office as a party leader of Ford Kenya? All of us go there, you understand?
Yes.
And if Martha Koome cannot guarantee accountability and integrity in the performance of judicial functions by judges and magistrates, which is quite evident hitherto, the public popular opinion, the judicial informed opinion is that she's unsuitable to continue holding the office of Chief Justice. And by extension, therefore, the many judges whose misconduct she has countenanced on account of a decisional independence doctrine coined at the Judicial Service Commission must also go. You understand? And you see, people have asked, why are you demanding the resignation of these judges and the Chief Justice? We're fighting a civil war. It is a just war. We must fire a warning shot before we point a salvo on the victim.
Yeah.
So we will open avenues for her to leave, any other judge to leave. Because the Constitution allows a judge to retire honorably at the age of 65 and get all your perks. I mean, we are prepared to go to the end of this fight. It will be bloody. It will have casualties. But the cost of war is enormous to everybody, the victor and the victim. That's why we are saying, much as we know we'll be the victor in this enterprise, we want to spare the government, we want to spare the people of Kenya the cost of this war.
That's all. You know, I've always been a bit puzzled, though, because what you raises the bar for us lowly citizens and in our understanding of the law and how it works. Most of my time was attending school on Sundays. Nilikuwa napitia tu school namna hii.
Sunday school.
Napitia tu. Every time this issue comes up, the thing that goes through my mind is that there's the issue of incompetence that you bring up. Then I look at the example you've given about the CBC and the length of time it took. Given the nature of or the import of what a school system means to the country and its future, there are very few things that can be as urgent as that. What seems to be imputed, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that whatever decisions are made because in some of these cases, undue influence is put or is placed before these judges. So their decision making is flawed.
You're right.
That is what I read. Now, and if it is so, there will be evidence to point us in that direction. Then there's the matter of corruption within the judiciary, which also comes up. And it reminds me of John chapter 8, verse 3 to 1.
Amen.
You have to let me finish before you say amen.
Amen is a comma, it's a punctuation.
It's a comma.
Yes.
The woman who was caught in adultery, and a question was raised by Jesus that let he who has not sinned cast the first. And people disappeared. What happens to the lawyers who are complicit in this process? Because judges don't bring cases to themselves.
Yes,
cases are brought to the judges. It's in the process of adjudication where we see what is implied. I'm not going to insult monkeys and say monkey business. I'm going to say nefarious activities take place.
Yes.
What happens to the lawyers who are involved in this process? Because the judges are not involved alone.
You're right, and you're also wrong. Mother Kome is on record as having told several of my clients, verily, you shall not instruct Nelson Harvey to appear before the Supreme Court. God forbid, if you do instruct him to appear before Supreme Court, you will lose your cases. We have a scenario where judges determine for parties who is to represent them. And look, let me remove the case from myself because it may sound like a personalized example. Not a month ago, not far away, a month ago, Ashley Omar appeared before the Supreme Court to defend her client on a very important matter. Ashley Omar is a senior lawyer. And she was told the ban imposed on the firm of Mohammed Nasser applies to all of you, and for that reason, we will not hear you, we will not remove the ban. And we are telling your client to go and get another lawyer. And if the client does not get another lawyer, we'll rule against her. That is what the Supreme Court did.
And it's documented.
It's documented. So, to a large extent, corruption is perpetuated by the court itself. And we know, because gossip in the legal profession is rife. We are privy to intelligence. We know which judges prefer which lawyers to appear before them. And you saw the other day, when I made a complaint against a judge of the commercial court, I said, let's list the lawyers who deal with this judge. The following day, one of the lawyers was in court and got an injunction to stop me from talking about it. But everybody knows in the legal profession that this lawyer is the conduit for the judge. But that said and done, I've taken a judge to the Judicial Service Commission and removed that judge. And in the report by retired Chief Justice David Kenani Maraga, he recommended action be taken by the Law Society of Kenya against certain 3 lawyers who were complicit in that enterprise with the impugned judge. Nothing was done against those advocates. And you see, it's things that like this that propelled me to rise to the helm of the leadership of the Law Society of Kenya to inquire on what exactly happens in disciplinary process.
Sure.
So the disciplinary process of the Law Society of Kenya is the most compromised. I can tell you this without any fear of control because I've sat there. You understand? But in conclusion, 2 people wake up in the morning. One is a doctor to go and treat people. Another one is a robber to go and rob. They are both on duty. You see, you are the judge. It is your duty to do right. That these unscrupulous, corrupt lawyers, they have woken up in the morning to do wrong. It is their bad job. We hold you as the judge or magistrate accountable. You have no explanation. So this lamentation that Martha comes, corruption cannot happen without participation of the legal profession. That's nonsense. You took an oath. You're paid from public funds. It's your responsibility to do right, to uphold the Constitution, to ensure the rule of law prevails. Don't tell me, have you brought me 10 million? No, it's not an answer.
Nelson Harvey, thank you for being here. Thank you for your explanations of this. And conversations like this must continue. And we look forward to having you in the hot seat another time. Asante Sana. Good morning.
Thank you.
It's 8:01.